Will you give us any clues?
What happens?
Yeah, go on.
Well, it's...
Welcome to a very special Classic FM Christmas. It is Christmas Eve at Gavin and Stacey's with me, Joanna Gosling, and we are with the show's brilliant creators, Ruth Jones and James Corden. Welcome. Hi, it's great to have you.
We're very happy to be here.
Oh, what would you normally be doing then on Christmas Eve?
Normally, I have left, it's not so much presents, but it's normally Christmas cakes or something to do with the food the next day that I've left last minute. I'm usually making a stollen, which I always do every Christmas, and then I always regret it because it's quite complicated making a stollen. I can't even say it.
It's
properly.
also not one of those things where people are like, oh, where's the stollen?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not
Yeah.
Christmas without a stollen.
Yeah. So, I haven't made one. I'm not going to make one this year. I've stuck to the basics. It's normally food based. That's what I'm normally doing Christmas Eve. What about you?
I love Christmas Eve. I adore it. It's kind of, I like the idea of us doing this now. And I think Christmas Eve is, for me, as special in a way as Christmas Day. There's the sort of anticipation of it. I see it now through my children a lot more than I, did obviously before I was a father. And the sheer excitement in them, the joy of being together. But historically, before I sort of moved to America, before I had kids or anything, I took on cooking the Christmas dinner when I was around about probably 26, 27. I started cooking the Christmas dinner. And so Christmas Eve just became all about prep for me because that's the only way you can deliver your Christmas dinner successfully is to know exactly where you are. So I used to be writing out, I used to sit at our dining table and I used to write out my timings and my plans, and I'd get everything ready, and I loved it so much. And I think it's an incredibly special time that night before.
Yeah.
You've both kind of, it's that combination that every household has, isn't it? The panic, what haven't I done? And then that anticipation is quite magical.
This year, my sister and I are cooking Christmas lunch, and I just love doing anything with my sister because we both get really hysterical and melodramatic and Welsh about everything. Like, the peas! We haven't done any peas! And so it's always really good fun, and so I am looking forward to that actually.
Caroling was always a big part of my life. I grew up in a Salvation Army family, so every Saturday in Marlow Town Centre, for the month of December, we used to go and play Christmas carols with the Salvation Army band. And then when I hit about sort of 15, 16, I started Christmas caroling on my own to try and raise money, and I loved it so much. I used to make a fortune.
Really?
Yeah.
You've got a good voice.
Well, I just used to knock on the doors, and then you basically make £1 a house. Basically, back in the days when people carried cash, you make £1 a house. So I would just hit. Sometimes I'd hit like 30, 40, or 50 houses a night, and that's how I'd buy all my Christmas presents and stuff. And if anybody asked if it was for charity, I'd always say it's for the Self-Preservation Fund. And so the song I've chosen is a song that I would, in the High Wycombe area, the village of Hazelmere in High Wycombe, on Roberts Ride or Cedar Avenue or Mary's Mead or any of those roads I used to hit, 35 years ago, you'd have heard me ringing a doorbell and singing Hark the Herald Angels Sing, and that's why I've chosen it today.
I wonder, James, if there are people living in the area that you used to sing as a little boy going, oh, we used to hear him. He was the caroller.
Well,
I love that idea.
there's definitely people still living there, and there will also be people there that got annoyed with me as I got a bit older and probably started to hit houses perhaps a little earlier. I started on October 7th.
I think this is what did this spawn the storyline in Gavin and Stacey?
It did basically, yeah. It did.
So in the last Christmas special, Nessa and Neil the baby went carol singing together, but Nessa dressed
It was so funny, that costume.
as a Victorian carol singer with the sideburns and the cape and the hat and the staff, and basically,
and then Neil the baby just had a tea towel around his neck.
as a shepherd, and they would go and sing. And Emlyn, we went to Emlyn's house, and he was like, "Oh, not again," because she would go there time and time again, and until she got any money, she would just keep
wouldn't
singing.
stop.
Yes. I can stay here all night.
I got no shame.
I got no shame. And she even had a machine, didn't she?
Yeah,
because
for if you didn't have any
contactless.
cash.
Yeah.
What I also loved is seeing you that day, because that Christmas special we shot in the summer. So when anything that's set at night, we'd have to wait until maybe 10, 11, 12, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Until it got really, really dark. So that night you shot that slightly earlier than when we shot the scene when everybody arrives on the road. And we had this running joke that Ruth looked like Harry Seacombe in Oliver. And so she'd just randomly walk up to people and go, "More?"
Oh, so, I mean, the show is obviously Gavin and Stacey, but all the other characters just have their own standalone part in everybody's hearts. And of course, this year, it really does feel like it's Nessa and Smithy, after we were left on tenterhooks 5 years ago.
Well, you'll have to wait and see. But I think, Gavin and Stacey are the absolute glue of the show, and they're the heart of it. And the reason that all these characters have ever met is because of them. So, and we love them all. When we're writing the script, we love acting out their lines, saying their lines out loud, taking on all of the different characters, and we do love them all. But it's Gavin and Stacey who keep the show. They are the heart. They are the heart of the show, really. And we'll just have to see what happens with Smithy and Nessa. Who knows?
Will you give us any clues?
What happens?
Yeah, go on.
Well, it's after the plane crash. It's quite difficult to talk about. Oh God, sorry, I've said too much.
What has the build-up to this cultural event been like for both of you? Because it feels like the whole nation is going to be watching. Everybody's talking about it, planning their Christmas day around it.
The thing is, you don't want to make assumptions. I think we've really enjoyed. We really enjoyed making it. We really enjoyed filming it. We loved being with the cast for one last time, and there was a lot of fun, a lot of happiness in those 3 weeks when we were filming. Or was it more than 3 weeks? Well, 5, wasn't it? Actually,
it was 5 weeks. Yeah,
5 weeks. So I don't know, really.
And look, I think it's quite difficult for us to talk about the show culturally in that sense, because in a way, like, we don't even really see the show as necessarily being ours anymore. This is an incredibly gifted, talented group of people that make this show. And all we've really tried to do in the writing of it, in the shooting of it, and even sat here now talking with you about it, is to try to not think about all of those things that inevitably come with something like a show like this, when people talk about, ratings and numbers and plus 28 days and all these kind of things. And all we can really do is look at each other and go, have we served the characters? Have we served the story? And in doing that, we hope we've served the audience. Everything after, at 10:33 when the show's finished, it will immediately be something that only exists in our past. And we really, really hope that people feel a sense of satisfaction from watching it, that they feel satisfied in the outcome, a sense of closure, and all we want really is people to feel this sort of joyous, warm, fuzzy feeling that we've had and felt every minute of the last 20 years with it, really.
Will you both be watching tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to watch it together.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
think it's the only way to watch it, really, because we understand each other. Like, we understand what it feels like to be watching it.
Yeah.
And I think you just don't know. It's a bit of an unknown quantity how other people are going to react. So because obviously we know the show, we know what's coming. Whereas when you're watching it, I mean, of course, the families are going to be watching it for the first time, but it's going to be somehow a little bit more contained, I think, isn't it? Although James's sister last time.
We watched the 2019 specials together as well. Our families, and we got together and we watched it in the evening. And my sisters, when it cut to the credits after Nessa asked Smithy if he'd marry her, it had been so warm and fuzzy and lovely. My mum's crying, Ruth and I are holding hands. We're just thinking, oh, look at this. What an incredible thing to share. And Christmas Day, and there's something amazing about being on BBC One. And then it ended. She said, I love you with all my heart. Marry me. And it cut to the credits. And my sister just went, no! And she was actually like, I'm actually quite angry at that. And that actually made me quite angry. So we've really tried our best not to
anger your sister.
Anger anybody is what we've tried to do. But yeah, we'll be watching the show together. Because what a special thing.
Yeah. Obviously I've been pushing to find some clues from you. Everybody is. You've even kept it secret from your families. How hard has that been?
Well, I think going back to what James has said, I don't think people really want to know. I mean, you're saying you're looking for clues. I think it would really spoil it for you. And people would sometimes say to me, oh, come on, just... Can you tell us what's going to happen? Can you tell us what did Smithy say? What's going to happen in the special? And I go, right, think about it. Do you really, really want to know? Because you don't. But you want to sort of. Oh, it's a bit like
it's back to that anticipation, isn't it? We love it.
Yeah. And I think the anticipation is what's enjoyable.
How important is music to both of you? There is a lot of music in the show.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a folk fan, so most of the music in Gavin and Stacey is chosen by Liana, our editor, or Chris Gernan, our director, or James. I take no credit for it, but it's always. Oh yeah, this is lovely. I mean, some songs take a while to grow on me. I remember in the last Christmas special with Feliz Navidad, and I thought, oh no, I don't like that at all.
Oh.
But now I can't imagine not having it there. It's joyous.
Yeah.
I think anyone who writes a show or a film or anything, music it can play such an incredible role. Just now, like listeners of Classic FM, I'm certain that the incredible music you play on this, it can't help but sort of bleed into your life, whether you're in the car, you're in the kitchen. It creates a backdrop, and for us as writers, what it can do is really help us to move momentum between scenes, especially with a show that goes from Barry Island to Billericay, and the distance and the journeys and the motorways and things. The special that airs tomorrow night is probably one of the few times we've written some very, very specific music where we've known from a long way out that we're going to write this piece of this special for this piece of music. And we haven't done that many times, have we? Probably only 2 or 3 in the whole course of the show. But in this one, in the sort of, as it gets to the sort of the last third of the show, there is a very, very definite piece of music that really starts to inform a sort of tonal shift in the episode, really.
Mm-hmm. You've been friends and co-creators for 25 years. What's the dynamic like when you work? Is it easy? Because we just, we hear these characters that just flow and kind of assume it just flows out of you and it's all very, very straightforward. What's it like?
I can't speak for James, but I just love being in the room with him, and it's always just really good fun. We spend a lot of time chatting when we first get together about like life and just nonsense a lot of the time. And the writing almost comes out of that. I don't think there's ever been a time when we have started a writing session like straight away. I think we always have to warm up and kind of get in the mood. And so it comes from, I think the show is about love and friendship. And I think it comes from love and friendship. I think that's where the show has come from, really, isn't it?
It's sort of spurts of inspiration in a mass of just kind of naps and chocolate, really.
Yeah.
And so, it's interesting writing Gavin and Stacey, ever since the show sort of became popular, people have said to us both, like, particularly in the last 5 years, like, oh, do you know what happens next? What's going to happen? And my answer would always be, I'm as excited to find out as you are. Like, it really does feel, this may sound quite sort of, I don't want this to sound, I don't know, indulgent in any way, but like, it really does feel like we're merely just messengers from these characters. Like, we get in a room, we open a laptop, we chat, and then at some point a portal opens and these characters arrive and they tell us what they want the story to be. And our job is just to listen to them and know them as best we can. And then, the greatest joy you can ever have is if you happen upon an idea that makes Ruth Jones laugh. It's a joy to do. And then the moments when the two of us are sort of uncontrollably laughing, as which there's been quite a lot in this special where we're just laughing and then you can't get the words down quick enough, really. And then once it feels like a tap's turned on, it just happens, and then we take another nap and carry on. That's it, really.
Back to those amazing characters that you created. I think everybody feels like they know them. Oh, you must have met my mum, my friend, whoever. Are they all based on real people that you know?
No, they're not based on people. I think we've been inspired a little bit. I mean, you'd be amazed how many people think Nessa is based on them. I mean, my Auntie Anne, she absolutely is convinced. She said, no, that is me. And then I think Rob Brydon said to me one day, because you know when you do Nessa, you really sound like your impression of your dad. And I think there is an element of truth in that. But we haven't actually based it on people, just sort of characteristics that we've picked up.
There's characters in the show that are sort of named after people. I mean, the character is really not very similar to him at all, but one of my oldest friends is my friend Gavin, and he met his wife because she worked that was the real basis for the idea of the story. She worked in sales, he worked in accounts. They used to speak on the phone all the time, and he used to tell me that he'd met this girl and that they just keep talking and he really likes her, and then they were going to meet up and all these things. So Gavin was always kind of named after him. And then the character of Smithy is my cousin Lee, is a bricklayer, and his best man at his wedding is a guy called Smithy. I don't actually know Smithy's real name, but he was just called Smithy. And so, but Smithy's as a character is really not like him at all. But we just thought it was funny as a good name, a good nickname.
A lot of the like some of the stags in the early days, the friends, Gavin, Smithy and Gavin's friends. A lot of those names were nicknames that I'd heard of in my childhood, my teenage years, like Budgie and Fingers. And I think one time I think I'd gone to I was at an airport and I saw a stag party, didn't I? And I said, oh, some amazing names. They all had their names on the T-shirts, and there was a Swede and a Jesus.
Swede and Jesus, I remember you coming back.
And as you were writing, were you seeing particular actors in the parts? How did the cast come together? Because they are all so perfect.
Well, the parts of Pam and Bryn, we very, very much wrote for Alison Steadman and Rob Brydon. We were lucky enough to work with Alison on an ITV show, which is where we met, called Fat Friends, and we just loved her, and I think she's as good an actress as ever walked the earth. And so we thought, well, let's try and write a part for Alison. And your relationship, I knew Rob and had worked with Rob, but your relationship with Rob is far deeper than mine.
I was in school with Rob, and I've known him since we were about 14, 15. And we worked with him on, I'd been on Human Remains, and he'd been in Little Britain, I think, together at the same time as you.
I did a show called Cruise of the Gods with him on the BBC.
So Rob just seemed like the perfect Uncle Bryn, actually. And I think originally he thought he was going to need to play him a lot older, but we'd said, no, actually, he might have an older demeanour, but he is your age. So, and Uncle Bryn was born.
There was Rob was filming in Sydney, in Australia, when I was on tour with a play I was in called The History Boys. And at this point, we'd written the show and we'd been told that it was going to be green lit, and so I had like a monumental day, which I'll never ever forget my whole life, with Rob in Sydney. And we got the ferry over from the Opera House to Manly Beach, and we sat on the beach and ate fish and chips. And he kind of said, so tell me about this guy, Uncle Bryn. And we started talking about it. And the more I talked to him about it, the more he started to, and Ruth had this chat with him saying, I don't think he's as old as you think he is. And then I remember calling you going, I just sat with Rob for an hour and he started just improvising this stuff, and it's amazing. It was incredible. And in fact, we took some of that actual improv and it made its way into the script in episode 6, where he's talking about a camera with Russell Tovey's character Budgie, who was also in the History Boys when I was on tour. So it just, all these things, they feel so organic and it feels so meant to be, you know?
Ruth, what do you think Nessa would like to hear next?
Well, the great thing about Nessa is that whenever there's anything with the letter O in it, in the script, it always gives the opportunity to just go, oh. So, we had, Merry Christmas. I think a suitable song for Nessa would be, Oh, Holy Night.
You're putting these characters to bed, but can you? I mean, presumably every single day people come up to you and speak the lines that you've written back to you. How much does that happen?
Oh, it does happen a lot, I'm not going to lie. But I think maybe at the moment it's more prevalent because of the special coming our way. And it's such a massive compliment that people quote lines back or tell you how much they enjoy the show. And we're very fortunate that, iPlayer will keep showing the episodes, and I think you can see them on Dave and things like that. So the show has had a life beyond anything we could have ever imagined, and we are incredibly grateful for that. I just find it a compliment, yes, but the show is definitely coming to an end, and we will not see those characters anymore. However, I do think they carry on living. It's just that we don't see them on our TV screens anymore.
What would you? How much of them is you, and vice versa?
I mean, not very much. I don't think. I think the fundamentals of the show are perhaps the thing that Ruth and I relate to the most. We're both very, very lucky that we were born into loving and secure families, and that's really what the show's about. The show is just a show about love and family and friendship, and that's all it's ever been about. And at the centre of it really is a very, very typical boy meets girl love story. Gavin and Stacey met one day in Leicester Square and decided to spend the rest of their days together and have children and all those things. And it feels very, very ordinary, and it's extraordinary in that, really. And then there's this other love story, which is two people who, for various different reasons, just haven't been able to get it together. They have a child together, and who knows what's going to happen to them on Christmas Day when we say goodbye to these characters. But really, really what the show is about is a sense that however messy, however complex, and however complicated, love's the answer, and your families are the answer, and your friendships are the answer. And I think it's not about how much of the characters are in Ruth and I, but I think the thing that really does beat solidly in Ruth and I is, look, we met 25 years ago. We are as good of friends as you could ever imagine. Our friendship is more important than the show, and the friendship of these characters is the thing that drives it forward. And really, it's about love.
Did I read, Ruth, that when you, in the last episode, when you were telling as Nessa Smithy how much you love him, you were actually thinking, this is how I feel about James?
Absolutely. It was a very magical moment. It was in the middle of the night, like James was saying about filming, when we had to film sort of in the early hours because of the darkness. And we'd had the sparks, the electricians' vans had sort of blocked off this little bit of the road, because we knew that if anyone took a photo, seeing Nessa down on one knee, you didn't need to hear the words, you'd just know what was going on. And there was a lot of security around it, and fortunately we managed to keep any stray cameras at bay. And there was a silence in the air, and I just remember, you don't see Nessa very often being vulnerable, and so when sometimes comedy is the easier option, but when you're a character like Nessa is, who essentially is, she's quite kind of out there and stoic and tends to come out with these really extreme lines, but to have that moment where she's being vulnerable, I thought the only way I can do this is to absolutely dive right in. And then I looked at James and I just thought, I really love you. You are my dear, dear friend. And everything I'm saying now, I absolutely mean. I love you with all my heart. And I meant it. And I meant it. And it was a very, very special moment.
It's making me feel emotional in the studio. As it's Christmas, I thought it would be nice to get some Christmas wisdom from you, because this is the time of year when we think about, what we've learned over our lives, what we want to share. So what's the message that you would like to share this Christmas?
I haven't got any wisdom really at all, but I just think with everything that's going on in the world, and, sometimes you can get a little bit overwhelmed by negativity. I think all we can actually do is be kind to each other, like on a day-to-day basis, and to sometimes put ourselves in other people's shoes a little bit, to just, Christmas is great, isn't it? It's fantastic, but for some people it's not great. And so I think just to be aware really of what other people might be going through. And, a little smile goes a long way, doesn't it? I really think that. And, we can get overwhelmed by the busyness of the day and all of that. But actually, a little smile, a little bit of eye contact does everybody the world of good.
Yeah. James?
I'm going to lean on a song lyric, which actually is the band that Smith and Burrows that I mentioned before have a song called When the Thames Froze, and it ends with a lyric which I really, really try to think about every single Christmas. And the lyric at the end of that song says, "So tell everyone that there's hope in your heart. Tell everyone or it'll tear you apart. On the end of Christmas Day, when there's nothing left to say, the years go by so fast. Let's hope the next beats the last."
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are we going to be left feeling at the end of Gavin and Stacey? Will we have been through the emotional ringer? Will we be feeling this sort of joyous sentiment that you've just both been describing there, this sense of optimism?
It's not really for me to say how people are going to feel.
Okay.
I know how we felt after when we watched it, when we got to the end, and we felt very proud of it and very happy with it and warm and squidgy.
Oh, couldn't be better than that.
Yeah, I think it's, look, we're both aware that there is a huge element of nostalgia in the show. We're aware of this is a show that characters and stories that people have known about and carried with them for almost 18 years now, 17 years ago. I think they met these characters. 20 years ago, we started writing it. Really, I think warm and squishy is a great way to describe how we hope people will feel. I hope that they'll enjoy being in these characters' orbits one last time, knowing that it is the last time. And more than anything, all we've really, really tried to do is give them a send-off, because these characters have changed our lives and they mean the world to us. And this is it. This is the last time you'll see them.
It has been such a pleasure, such a privilege to be able to spend a bit of time on Christmas Eve with both of you, Ruth Jones, James Corden. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the joy, the pleasure that you've given to so many of us through your creations of Gavin and Stacey. Wish you a very, very happy Christmas and a great 2025.
Thank
Happy
you
Christmas
so much.
to you.
Thank you.